April 5, 1933. President Franklin Roosevelt signs Executive Order 6102, and overnight, private gold ownership becomes illegal in America. Federal agents began showing up at banks, safety deposit boxes were searched, and citizens were forced to surrender their gold for paper dollars at below-market prices. If you're watching this video, you're probably wondering, could this happen again? And more importantly, is your gold IRA actually safe from government confiscation? I'm going to give you the straight truth about government gold confiscation. No fear-mongering, no sales pitches, just the facts you need to protect your retirement. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what happened in 1933, why it happened, the key legal differences between then and now, and most importantly, whether your gold IRA offers real protection or if it's just another government IOU waiting to be called in. I've put together a comprehensive analysis guide in the description below that includes the actual text of Executive Order 6102 and a protection checklist you can use today. Let's start with what actually happened in 1933 because most people get this story completely wrong. America was in the depths of the Great Depression. Banks were failing left and right. Unemployment was at 25%, and people were hoarding gold because they didn't trust the banking system. Sound familiar? But here's the crucial part most people miss. We were still on the gold standard. Every dollar was supposed to be backed by gold, and the government was running out. Roosevelt needed to devalue the dollar to stimulate the economy, but he couldn't do that while citizens could demand gold for their paper money. So on April 5, 1933, he signed Executive Order 6102. The order required all persons to deliver all gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates to the Federal Reserve by May 1, 1933. The penalty for noncompliance? Up to $10,000 in fines. That's about $200,000 in today's money, or up to 10 years in prison, or both. But Executive Order 6102 wasn't a complete seizure. There were important exceptions that tell us a lot about how the government thinks about gold ownership. First, you could keep up to $100 worth of gold coins, about $2,000 in today's purchasing power. Second, gold jewelry and ornaments were exempt. Third, and this is crucial, coins with recognized special value to collectors were also exempt. The government wasn't trying to steal grandma's wedding ring or your rare coin collection. They needed monetary gold, the gold that people were using as money instead of trusting the banking system. Now, here's what most people don't realize. The confiscation was remarkably unsuccessful. Economic historians estimate that only about 20 to 25% of privately held gold was actually turned in. Millions of Americans simply ignored the order, and the government didn't have the resources to hunt down every gold coin in the country. Many people buried their gold, hid it in walls, or simply moved it out of the banking system entirely. Understanding why 1933 happened is crucial to evaluating whether it could happen again. This wasn't about government greed or control. It was about monetary policy during a gold standard system. When you're on the gold standard, your ability to increase the money supply is limited by how much gold you have. Roosevelt wanted to print more money to fight deflation and stimulate the economy, but every new dollar theoretically needed gold backing. By confiscating private gold and then immediately revaluing it from $20.67 per ounce to $35 per ounce, the government instantly increased its gold reserves in dollar terms by about 70%. This gave them the monetary flexibility they believed they needed to fight the Depression. But here's the key point. We abandoned the gold standard completely in 1971. Today, the dollar is a fiat currency backed by nothing but faith in the U.S. government. The government can print as much money as it wants without needing gold reserves. This fundamentally changes the calculus for confiscation. So what's different today? Three major factors have completely changed the landscape. First, as I mentioned, we're off the gold standard. The government doesn't need your gold to back the currency anymore. Second, the amount of privately held gold is vastly larger today relative to government holdings. In 1933, the government held about 20% of all gold ever mined. Today, central banks hold less than 17% of above-ground gold, while private investors hold the majority. Confiscating private gold would be a massive undertaking with questionable benefit. Third, and this is where gold IRAs become interesting, the legal structure of retirement accounts creates additional layers of protection. When you own gold in an IRA, you don't technically own it the same way you own gold coins in your safe. The IRA custodian holds the gold on your behalf, and your ownership is contractual through the retirement account structure. This creates what lawyers call beneficial ownership rather than direct ownership, Let's dive deeper into how gold IRAs actually work, because this structure is critical to understanding confiscation risk. When you set up a gold IRA, you're not just buying gold, you're creating a complex legal arrangement. You choose an IRA custodian, usually a bank, credit union, or specialized firm approved by the IRS. This custodian holds the gold on your behalf in an approved depository. The gold must meet specific purity requirements. Gold must be 99.5% pure, silver 99.9% pure, platinum and palladium 99.95% pure. You can't take physical possession of the gold while it's in the IRA without triggering a distribution, which means taxes and potentially penalties if you're under 59.5. This structure creates multiple legal entities between you and the gold. There's you, the IRA custodian, and the depository. If the government wanted to confiscate gold IRA assets, they'd have to navigate this complex web of fiduciary relationships, ERISA protections, and constitutional issues around retirement security. The company I personally recommend for Gold IRA custodian services, and I'll link them in the description below, has been handling these arrangements for over 2 decades and has never had a client's gold confiscated or improperly accessed. The legal protections around retirement accounts today are substantially stronger than what existed in 1933. ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, created federal protections for retirement assets that simply didn't exist during the Depression. These accounts are generally protected from creditors, which suggests they'd be protected from government seizure, except in the most extreme circumstances. Additionally, the Supreme Court has consistently ruled that retirement accounts deserve special protection. In the 2014 case Clark v. Ramaker, the court emphasized the importance of protecting retirement savings, even in bankruptcy proceedings. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If the government really wanted your gold IRA, they could probably get it. They could change the tax code to make gold IRAs prohibitively expensive to maintain. They could change IRA distribution rules to force you to liquidate precious metals holdings. They could impose special taxes on precious metals held in retirement accounts. The question isn't whether they legally could, it's whether they would want to, and whether the political and practical costs would be worth it. Looking at history, forced asset seizures usually happen during extreme crises and follow predictable patterns. They target liquid, easily identifiable assets that serve a specific government need. In 1933, it was monetary gold. During World War II, the government didn't confiscate gold. They issued war bonds and rationed materials needed for the war effort. In the 1970s, facing inflation and economic turmoil, the government didn't confiscate assets. They changed monetary policy and eventually freed up gold ownership again. Even in other countries, modern confiscation efforts have been surgical rather than broad-based. When Argentina froze bank accounts in 2001, they targeted peso and dollar deposits, not physical assets. When Cyprus seized bank deposits in 2013, they took cash, not gold or other physical assets stored outside the banking system. The pattern suggests that governments go after what's easy to seize and serves their immediate need. Gold IRAs, with their complex legal structure and relatively small total value compared to other retirement assets, don't fit that pattern. From a practical standpoint, confiscating gold IRAs would be incredibly difficult and politically costly. There are over 50 million Americans with IRAs of various types, but only a tiny fraction hold significant precious metals. The administrative cost of identifying, processing, and seizing gold IRA assets would be enormous. Unlike 1933, when most gold was held in bank safety deposit boxes or as common coins, today's gold IRA assets are scattered across dozens of custodians and depositories nationwide. The government would need to coordinate with private companies, navigate complex custody arrangements, and deal with inevitable legal challenges. Politically, it would be a nightmare. Gold IRA holders are typically older, politically active Americans who vote consistently, exactly the demographic politicians don't want to anger. The optics of the government seizing retirement savings would be devastating, especially when there are easier ways to achieve most policy goals. If you want to see the exact checklist I use to evaluate these political and practical risks, I've included it in the description below, along with warning signs to watch for that might indicate changing government attitudes toward precious metals. So, what's my honest assessment of gold IRA confiscation risk? I'd put it in the possible but highly unlikely category, somewhere around a 5 to 10% chance over the next 20 years, and only then during a severe national emergency that makes the 2008 financial crisis look mild. The more likely risks are indirect: punitive taxation, forced distributions, or regulatory changes that make gold IRAs less attractive. These are the slow confiscation methods that governments prefer because they're less politically visible and easier to implement gradually. For example, the government could eliminate the tax advantages of gold IRAs, making them economically unviable. They could impose annual wealth taxes on precious metals holdings. They could require mandatory distributions at lower ages, forcing you to liquidate gold holdings during market downturns. These approaches achieve similar results without the dramatic headlines and political backlash of outright confiscation. Given these risks, what should you do? First, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Gold IRAs can be part of a diversified retirement strategy, but they shouldn't be your entire strategy. I generally recommend precious metals make up no more than 10 to 20% of a retirement portfolio. Second, stay informed about regulatory changes. The government rarely acts without warning. There are usually months or years of political debate before major policy changes. Third, maintain some geographic diversification. While I'm not advocating anything illegal, having some assets outside the immediate reach of any single government has historically been prudent for wealthy families. Fourth, build relationships with experienced professionals. The custodian and depository you choose matter enormously. You want firms with long track records, strong political connections, and experience navigating regulatory changes. Finally, have an exit strategy. Know how quickly you can liquidate gold IRA holdings if necessary, understand the tax implications, and have alternative investment options ready. Here's the bottom line. Could the government confiscate your gold IRA? Legally, probably yes if they really wanted to. Will they? Almost certainly not, unless we face a national emergency that makes the Great Depression look like a minor recession. The structure of gold IRAs provides meaningful protection against government overreach, but it's not absolute protection. Nothing is. Your best defense is diversification, staying informed, working with experienced professionals, and maintaining perspective about the actual probability of various risks. The bigger threat to your retirement security probably isn't gold confiscation, it's inflation, market volatility, healthcare costs, and government spending that devalues the dollar over time. Gold IRAs can help protect against those more likely risks while providing reasonable protection against the remote possibility of confiscation. I hope this analysis has helped you understand both the history and the current reality of government gold confiscation risk. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate all risk. That's impossible. The goal is to understand the risk clearly and make informed decisions based on facts rather than fear. Don't forget to check the description for my complete Gold IRA protection guide, which includes historical documents, risk assessment worksheets, and a list of custodians I personally recommend. If you found this analysis helpful, please subscribe for more retirement protection strategies and let me know in the comments what other retirement security topics you'd like me to cover. Your financial security is too important to leave to chance, but it's also too important to base on fear instead of facts.